This is the first podcast that I have done from the air. So we are currently somewhere over the Atlantic, flying from London to Denver. I'm spending 7 days in Denver and I'm delivering 3 public speaking seminars this weekend. If you listen to the last podcast, you'll have heard all about it. But I was sitting here looking around me as I was having my coffee, doing some of my prep for the talks this weekend, and I think sometimes when you're so focused on improving your life that you actually forget to take a second and fully absorb yourself into it, fully take it in. And maybe you're in this position right now, you've been training for years, or you've been pushing for that job promotion, or you've been trying to post those videos or start the side hustle, or whatever that is, and you get so focused on moving forward that you actually forget to have fun or to just appreciate how far you've actually come. And I said this a few podcasts ago, that you only need to look at who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and if they sat beside you now and you'd explain everything that you've done, they'd be baffled. And there's a big part of my life that I haven't really spoken about this podcast before. I've mentioned it on Instagram videos, but I've never really gone to it in depth. And I suppose it's the story that changed my life. And the reason why I haven't delved into it, well, the biggest reason is that, number one, eventually I evolve as a person. We all evolve as people. And I don't think the story that changed me 8 years ago, or geez, not even 8 years ago, it's 5 years ago, the story that changed my life 5 years ago, that's not who I am today. I'm a very different person now. I have different challenges, of different things that I struggle with, and different things that I'm shooting towards. I don't want to be a broken record player. I want to give people the insights that I'm going through in my life right now. And I suppose sometimes I just get bored of telling the story, because I have on so many podcasts before. Anyway, I'll stop blue balls, but to understand the insights from maybe the rest of this podcast, and to understand this, you have to understand the full story, and you have to understand my upbringing. I've said this before, that I've had probably the best upbringing possible that I could have had. My mum and dad, they were from very working class backgrounds, probably the best people on 2 feet. The best people on 2 feet. My dad, he is like just the nicest man ever, but the most hard-working guy you'll ever meet. Same with my mum, the exact same. Just 2 incredible people. And when we grew up, they really instilled into the both of us, into all 3 of us, sorry, leaving Dean out, they instilled into all 3 of us that there is nothing that you cannot do. That's something that my dad always said to me. He said, Daniel, there's nothing you cannot do. And I always remember him at sports days, and when it was coming up with the sports days, people say, it's the winning, it's the taking part that counts. My family were not about that. They said, we're Dargans, we're winners. My dad always used to say that. He says, we're winners. So he used to put the pressure on when it came to the sports days, and I found that healthy. I think that was so healthy. He said, if you do anything in life, you do it right. And some of those little lessons that he drip-fed into me as a kid, they've really stuck with me now. But I always believed that I could be more and do more. I came first in the sports days. I was the captain of the football team in primary school as a kid. I was the lead in High School Musical when I was in P7 as Troy Bolton. I know, could you believe it, right? Do you know what? I actually think you probably could. Me on stage, talking to people, it's crazy how things come full circle. I never even thought about that. Just how full circle that's actually come. Me on stage this weekend. But anyway, they always pushed us to do more, and I don't know if you had that or not, maybe you did, but maybe there's been somebody else in your life, maybe it's not been your parents, maybe it's been a friend that you had, or a teacher in your school that just pushed you on. They wanted more of you, or maybe you're in a position where you listen to this podcast and you're the only driving force in your life, and if that is you, I take my hat off to you. I'm not somebody that has experienced that myself, and I suppose that's a really privileged position to be in, and I know that I'm in a privileged position that I've got parents that they've created an incredible life for us, but that's the the ironic thing about this, that my parents created such a good life for me, it would make it would you would think there would never be any struggle. And I suppose that leads into the story of, I left school, excelled through high school until it got until my A levels, or my exams, where I just didn't study. All I did, I drank, I took drugs, and I partied. And my exams, I didn't study for them. I failed them, and I left school feeling like a failure, and rightly so. I didn't do the work, but I felt sorry for myself. I was feeling sorry for myself. I think it was the first ever knockback that I'd had in my life. Something that didn't come easy to me. Usually I could just wing it and I get by. It's the first time that didn't happen. And all my friends were going to have to be doctors. They were going to be lawyers. And I remember sitting there after people got their exam. I remember the day. It was a Thursday. And people got their exam results that day. And I remember driving in my little 1.2 Polo over to the school. I remember it was a really overcast day. The weather was awful, and I remember going in. I walked in through the school doors. I tried to not make eye contact with people. I picked up my exam results, and I went straight out to my car because I knew that I'd fucked them. So I went straight out to my car, and I actually just remember breaking down crying. And I took the car, and I took off. I left. And people were looking for me, and I just didn't want to speak to anybody. All my friends were going off to university, and they were going to be successful. And I thought that I failed. I thought that my life was over. And it's crazy how you can have these ideas that your life is over, that you're a failure, and you always prove yourself wrong. If you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, you eventually pick yourself up, you prove yourself wrong, right? And there's a saying that one of my guys, Ricky Cooters, he's from the States, he says, we don't quit, not in this house. And it always sticks in my mind. So I left school, I went to Topshop, and everybody always asks the question, oh, you at uni? Anyway, I went off to flight school. I say that very flippantly. I've spoke about these things before, but I want to go through it again in case you haven't heard it, before I actually take you through the day that actually changed my life. So I went to flight school to become an airline pilot. I left when I was 18. I done the interviews. I done the psychometric testing. I passed. I went down to Dublin, and I stayed in a hotel there 5 days a week. It was like Sweet Life in Zack and Cody. I remember, I would drive down at 5 a.m. on a Monday. I would check in, and you would have a big suite to yourself, and it was, I thought I was the man. I was living the life, and I would have got up in the morning at 4:35. I would have studied till 8. I would have drove over to the flight school. You would have had theory through the day. You would have been flying, and then I would have been studying at night. That was constant, Monday to Friday. And I remember after flight school, I would have came back into the hotel, because it was a hotel. It was a bar restaurant. I would have sat down, and I would have taken out my iPad and just banged out exam questions while I had 2 Coors Light. That was every other day, not most days. And I was having the time of my life. But for how much I was working Monday through Friday, at the weekends, I was burning the candle way too much. And when you're burning the candle. But I was going through a tough time in a relationship. I was just enjoying the party life, to be honest. I was trying to think of something else. There was actually nothing else. I was going through a tough time in a relationship, and I put a lot of that stress and into going out of the weekend. But I was the one that was the problem during that relationship, so I can't even say anything on that. Let's be honest here. I'm just talking shy for the past 30 seconds. Just null and void that. We don't do edits, but yeah. It did get to the stage though where I was drinking and was partying the weekends. I was taking drugs just to escape, and down the line, maybe a year later, because I was partying so much, because I wasn't looking after my body, and I was working so hard through the week, my body was just listen, your body's a crazy way of telling you that you need to slow down, or you need to change something. And I became very anxious. very anxious individual, and I always would have been known when I was younger as the talkative one, as the one that was very flamboyant, very confident, and I went from that in school as a kid to just being mute. I just didn't really speak. I didn't want to socialise or be in public, and the only time that I did is that when I was having a few beers with my mates. I got to the position where I couldn't sit in a room alone with my parents. I didn't even feel comfortable with my best friends. And I think when you experience that, you can't help but look back at who you used to be. And again, as I said before, when there's a massive gap between what you could be and who you are, it starts to eat away at your confidence. And I think instead of doing something about it, I just let this spiral. So it went on and on and on, and my mental health deteriorated. And like I'll openly admit here, I used to be the guy that would laugh if somebody said they had depression or they had mental health problems. I would have pissed myself because I'm like, mate, are you mental? Like, what do you mean you're depressed? Like, cheer up, mate. I actually would have been that naive, and that's how easy my life was growing up, and I don't regret it because I can't change it. But that was just a fact, and I suppose now I try to be a net positive for the world, and I try to help guys and girls as much as I can. But I'm just telling you, like, honestly, how it was, and I started to feel so anxious that I started to have quite dark thoughts, and these thoughts just got worse and worse. And I remember sitting in Safari, and I used to scroll through, and some of the stuff in my search history was scared you. I was looking for the quickest ways to end my life, and this became a normal thing to search up on my phone. Different ways, quickest ways. Stories of people, like, just it was, yeah. When I look back at that, it kind of terrifies me that somebody would be in that state. Like, I hate to think that anybody close to me would ever be in that position, that they think that's the only option. And it got worse and worse. I just hoped that I'd go to sleep and I wouldn't wake up. It didn't even get to the stage where I was hoping for better days. I just wished that I didn't wake up. And I'll never forget it. I went out on the Saturday night. It happened on 2 occasions. One of them I'm not even going to say on a podcast because it's pretty heavy, like. But the second time, which most people know about, is I went out on the Saturday, and my granny and my auntie were over, and I knew that they were leaving on the Tuesday. And after Tuesday, after they left, it was almost as if, like, alright, I'd seen everybody, and that was that. I remember, like, just feeling so numb and emotionless. I didn't feel sad, I didn't feel anything anymore. And I packed a bag and I left. And I drove, and I had an absolute shitload of prescription meds. Not prescription, it was, cocodamols, paracetamols, ibuprofens. It must have been on 75 tablets. More, maybe. I don't remember. All in little bags that had accumulated over time. And I remember driving and sitting in a car park, and then later on that day I drove behind an abandoned garage, and I remember pulling up there, and after being there, I don't really remember anything else because I was taking so many other things throughout that day that I stopped. I don't remember it. Maybe it was because of the trauma that I blacked out. I don't know what it was, but I don't remember anything. The next thing I remember after that was just screaming And obviously, what I know now, what happened was that I obviously go missing. People, my family, they realise this isn't normal. Somebody had came forward and said that I'd made an attempt already, and they obviously got very concerned. They put it out like a search party. They put it on Facebook. That Daniel Darga is missing. Last seen this morning at 10 a.m. wearing black tracksuit bottoms, grey hoodie, and give my car details as well. And I can't imagine how frantic people would have been, and my family, and it's something that I don't really think about anymore. But if there was anything that I regret about it, it's that I put my family through that, and I can't imagine as a mother, as a father, or even as brothers, like having to go through that, especially my younger brother being so young at the time. Must have scarred them, and I know it did. So, people are out looking for me, and my girlfriend, she finds me, her and her friend, and they're banging the window. I'm unconscious, and eventually they get the door open. Hi there. Can I get a coffee, please?
Coffee?
Yeah, with some milk, please. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, we need a little coffee intro story, little segment. So that was just the wrong time to order a coffee. I mean, you can clearly see that I've dealt with these emotions now. So my mum and dad, everybody rocks up. I'm put in a car. There's police there. I get taken to hospital, and I don't remember anything. The next morning, I wake up. It was like maybe 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I wake up and my mum and dad would sit beside me, and it was like the bubble had been burst. This whole lie that I've been keeping, that I've been holding in, that I was 100%. Because something I maybe didn't mention is that this whole time I was looking out for other people. I remember the week before I went to a friend of mine's house because his mum asked me to come down. That his friend, he wasn't in a good place mentally, and his mum asked me could I go down and speak to him, and I did. I was going through all of this at the same time, and I remember going up and speaking to him, giving him advice, and leaving. And the week later that happened. Oh, thank you so much. The week later that happened, I put on such a brave face. It was just a mask. And this sounds mental. This actually makes me sound like a psycho. So I used to put on. I was so mentally fucked. I created this alias, right? And at the time I loved Kanye West, and I loved Narcos, and there was Don Pablo. So Pablo, I called myself this. It was this alias that when I went out in public, I was this other guy, and Daniel Dargan, it was just a mask on. He was the guy underneath. So I wore this mask, and when I woke up in the hospital bed the next day, that was the first time that the mask had just been brought down, and everybody knew my secret. Everybody knew that the guy that was confident, that the guy that everybody thought had it together, that he was in flight school, that he was going to be a successful airline pilot, that he was in shape, all those things, that was crashing down. And it was an ego death. It was an absolute ego death. I remember just crying and crying and crying and crying. I couldn't stop crying. And I remember going to the crisis response unit afterwards, and they asked the question, do you still want to harm yourself? Do you still want to take your own life? And I said no, because my family, they were right there beside me, and I think the relief that other people knew, that was enough for me. I think seeing the pain on my mum's face, that was enough for me to be like, no, I need to, something needs to be done here. And they were insane, incredible. And I don't think my mum and dad, obviously they were very old school, and I don't think they initially realised, they probably didn't realise the extent. There's times where they knew maybe I was down, maybe from time to time, but they didn't understand it. Nobody would have. I was that good at hiding it. And from there, I rebuilt my life. I remember I was given diazepam. I was, I barely actually remember. I was given the diazepam for the first time, and I was like, holy shit, this is an absolute sweet ride. And, well, correction, it wasn't the first time, but it was I was given first time I was prescribed it, and that helped. That eased the initial shock of like reintegrating back into society. And I remember taking Diazepam. They give me 5 milligrams 3 times a day for a month, and I barely remember the month of December of 2019. And from there, I rebuilt my life. I remember my coach at the time, Ben Heron. He reached out to me, and we met up. He just listened to me. He listened to me for hours, and he was the first person that really instilled belief back in me that I could change my life, that I could turn things around. And I'll never forget that. We met at Gymco in Yorkgate Cityside. It's a gym in Belfast, and I don't even remember what we trained that day. I just remember him sitting, listening. And if you've ever got somebody, if you ever have a friend that's going through something, you don't feel pressure that you need to give advice. Don't feel pressure that you need to say something profound. Just let that friend know that, listen, I know you're going through a really tough time right now, and I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. I'll sit with you through this. I'll listen to you. Because that goes a long way. Somebody just knowing that they're there, that's huge. And one thing which is massive, if you do have a friend that is struggling with something, instead of saying like, you okay, mate, because like they're never going to say that, especially if you're a guy, or they're very seldom, unless they're very, very open individual. What I say, like, how can you lower the barrier to entry to these conversations? Either one, meet up with the individual and ensure you're side by side, because it's less intense then, and when you're side by side, go on a drive, something like that, it's less intense, people are easy, and you open up about something that you're struggling with, and that opens the floodgates for the other individual, because as soon as you open up about you, they feel safe. And I've said, say to your friend, if you ever are struggling with something, just shoot me a fist bump emoji and I will know. Shoot me a fist bump emoji and I'll be at your house. But all you need is one person in your life to believe in you. If you don't believe in yourself, find somebody that will. And I listen, as I said to you, I am very privileged that I was in a position where I had a coach at the time, and that was a privileged position to be in. That was, I had one of the best guys in my corner, and Ben Heron, he was only 20, in his early 20s, and nobody's equipped for that. But somebody that just can just listen. That guy changed my life completely, and I'll forever be indebted for him. I spoke at his event last year, which is so full circle. 5 years on, he had a New Year, New Man event. It's about rewiring your mindset for success. I spoke at that event after wanting to kill myself, after wanting to take my own life, and he helped me through it. I spoke at his New Year, New Man event in front of 200 people. How crazy is that? And if I can do that, if I can be so low, then what can you not do? You can do anything. There's nothing that you can't do, and that's why I talk with so much conviction, because I know just how bad it was for me, and just how good it is now. And I'm not saying that my life is insane. It's like, oh my god, every day's great. It's really not. And there's days where so many days where I just question myself and I think, oh my god, I'm so far behind. There's days where I'm not happy. That's normal. There's days where I'm stressed. But in comparison, it can get so good. You only need to look back at how much you've changed in the past 5 years, 10 years, to see how you can change again in the next 10 years. And if the past 5 weren't looking promising, well, take it from me, my story, just how much things can move forward and how much things can change. And one of the most important things about this is that you look after yourself. I didn't look after my body. I didn't look after my mind. And you need to treat your body like a house that you have to live in. for 80 years. Because you do. And what happens when you don't clean your house? What happens when you get a leak in the kitchen and you don't clean it up? What happens when you don't clear out the food in the fridge that's gone off? Things start to break down. The house starts to smell. And it's the same with you. If you don't go to the gym, if you are constantly feeding yourself bullshit, you're gonna feel that. Like, think about it. If you're feeding yourself shit, if you're not training, the output isn't going to be what you want. You're not going to feel good. And I'm a big believer now. Like, I used to be, I've changed my mind a lot on this. That, you know, I used to think, oh, do you know what? Like, you can't help, you know, people with mental health struggles, you know, there's very few things, like, that's just, you know, you can't help that. And it's okay. You're okay the way you are. No, you're not. No, you are not. If people if people said to me that you're okay the way you are, and I believed them, I would still be in the same position or dead. I wouldn't be sitting here in this podcast, because if I believed them, then I never would have got to the gym and done a photo shoot. If I believed them, then I never would have started posting videos on social media. If I believed them, then I would have stayed in the coffee shop working. But I wanted more for my life, and I want you to want more for your life too, because you can do anything. If they could put man on the moon, you can do anything. If they could put man on the moon, if Genghis Khan can conquer Central Asia, you can build your side hustle and escape the 9 to 5. If they can invent freaking electric cars, you can get in shape. Other people have done it, you can too. And as I said, before you look at your childhood trauma, before you look at your mental well-being, I think most guys, and I'm looking back at me, I didn't have a mental health problem. I was eating shit, I was taking drugs, I was drinking, I wasn't sleeping great, I was burning myself out too much, I didn't speak up. Do you have a mental health problem, or do you just not look after yourself? Do you have a mental health problem, or are you just feeding yourself shit, partying too much, sleeping too little, and you're not serving the future you? So before you start to look at your childhood trauma, look at how your life's looking. And this is what I want to, I want to hit home above all else. If you do difficult things in life, if you look at the version of you, the best version of you, how would they act? If you can just continue to act like that, not all the time, but most of the time, you're gonna win. Like, I'm gonna be really honest. I'm sitting on this flight here. Let me do a 180. I would love, it's a 9.5 hour flight from London to Denver. I would love to sit here and get the pints in, you know, have a wee cocktail and watch movies. But I can't do that, because I've got work. I've got to sit here and blast out 9.5 hours of work straight, and that's what I've done so far. I'm going to continue to do that. I don't want to do it, but I have to. What would the version of you, and the reason why, right? Because I know that if I don't do this now, if I don't do this prep now, I'm going to be more stressed out tomorrow. And I'm just saying, fuck you to the future version of me. So if you're going to make a decision today which is going to make the future you more stressed out, don't do it. Just lean in, okay? Like, why are some of the reasons why people don't get in shape, why people don't change their life? What do you think, right? Like, think about this with me. Who? I've also had about 6 or 7 coffees today. Honestly, maybe that's the ex-party boy in me. I love being stemmed out. What are some of the reasons why people don't get in shape or people don't change their life? Low motivation? No. Is it they don't know how? Yeah, sometimes. Is it they're surrounded by the wrong people? Can't play a part. Here's a question for you. Would you run into a burning building? No, you wouldn't. Now, if I told you that your mum was in a burning building, would you run into the burning building? Of course you would. I'm going to ask you that again. If I told you your mum was in the burning building, would you run in? Of course. You would be in there before I could finish my sentence. Why? Because it's a necessity, because it is a matter of life or death. You don't care if you... The question, am I motivated, no longer matters. Do I want it? No longer matters. Am I too tired? It no longer matters. It's a matter of life or death, so you make it happen. And when you can make your goals a necessity, a matter of life or death, then you will get to where you want to go. It was a matter of life or death for me to turn my life around. And the thought now of ever going back to that position, there's no way. There's no way I would ever do that. And that's why I get in the bed at 5 in the morning. That's why I do those things. When I'm getting in that bin, there's time. If I really don't want to do it, I'll think back to how I used to feel. I'll think back to used to sitting at my lost car park in the middle of the day, crying my eyes out because I didn't want to live anymore. I think about that and I think, how lucky am I to be in this position? And if I do this now, I'm going to be stronger tomorrow. Remember, when you don't want to do something and then you follow through and do it, that discipline muscle gets stronger, and that is building the armor in your mind. So stop putting things off, because when you do, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you can't handle it, that you cannot follow through. The more you show up, the bigger that muscle gets. The more you make excuses, the weaker it gets. So you call it, baby, but you have so much more in the locker, and I don't think you realise just how mentally strong you actually can be. And there's days where I have low moments. Like when I was sick there last week, I was just, I felt fat, I felt lazy, I was behind on my work, not my client work, but like with this presentation, because I was, 2 weeks I was sick, I hadn't spent any time on it, and I said, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna moan about it? No, I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna feel better once I get these antibiotics into me. They also give me the shits, by the way. Not good, so I had to stop taking them. I'm gonna go again. I'm gonna give everything I have for the next week. But you need to get very clear. If you want to change, right? No matter who you are, you don't need to be depressed, suicidal to want to change. You just need to get clear where you're going, why you want to go there, and you need to see it often. Right? Think about this. I want you to look around the room, right? If you're driving, look around for the red cars, right? Look around the room for everything you see that is the color red. Look left, look right. Everything that's the color red. Got it? Okay. Now close your eyes. And I want you to tell me everything you see that was the color brown. Everything you see that was the color brown. Keep your eyes closed. Okay, now you can open them. You couldn't see anything probably. You remembered everything that was red. Why? Because you were focusing on it. You were focusing on red so much that you didn't take any brown into consideration. What you think about, you bring about. And if you see something so often, if it's in your face, it's all you can think about. Your brain will start to show you evidence that it exists. It will start to show you opportunities that you didn't even know were there. So where you want to go, write that on a whiteboard. That's what I done when I wanted to change my life. Write it on a whiteboard. Have it as your phone wallpaper. Do what you need to do, but never lose sight of it. The reason why people lose sight of these things is because, number one, they stop hanging around people that are going in the same direction. So if that's the case, find somebody that's doing the same thing. Or number two, they don't expose to themselves to the mirror of accountability, to that whiteboard which has the checkbox of what they need to do, or that thing on their phone which reminds them what they're not doing. Mirror of accountability. So see it every day. Every single day. And listen, I'm gonna wrap up here because I need to get back to prepping. But results, what we do with our coaching, getting people into world-class shape and taking them to a position they haven't been mentally, like we guarantee results. I say this, when we're opening spaces, that if you don't drop 20 pounds within 90 days, provided that you implement AT, we give you a full refund, and I work with you for completely free until we get the result. Why? Because it's a tried and tested process, hundreds of times. It is science. It's not guesswork. And it's the exact same as you performing at your best. It should not be guesswork. Do you ever have... Well, what I'm going to give you here is a framework, a high-performance playbook, so that you never need to guess. You don't need more hacks. You don't need more tools. You need a framework that works consistently and that you can implement and get straight back into flow. When I'm working with our guys, we'll look at what's holding them back, and it's not their calendar, it's not their having too much caffeine, it's emotional drag, unconscious stress that's building up each day, and it's eating away at their capacity. So firstly, what we want to do, we want to reduce the drag. We want to take away the emotional noise, and that's just by reducing your stress. If you look at the podcast I've done previously about how to reduce your stress, give that a watch. Once we've reduced your stress, this is what we're going to do. High performance playbook. We're going to line you a playbook out here right now. So I would get a pen and paper. You can listen and do this after, but I would definitely urge you to do it now. So what we do with our guys, we look at your training schedule, we look at your sleeping, your eating habits, we look at your morning routine, we look at your work patterns, we look at everything, and we look at when things are at their best. Like, do you ever have those weeks where everything just clicks, everything feels smooth, you're sharp, you're on it, and then you have weeks where you're sluggish, where you're slow? Why do you think that is? Because people are guessing. So it's very simple. What you're going to do, you're going to write a list. You're going to take a sheet of paper and you're going to write 2 out of 10 on the left side. You're going to write 8 out of 10 on the right side. And on the left side of the 2 out of 10, you're going to write out everything from when you're at your worst. What is your training schedule looking like? What are your eating and sleeping habits like? What's your morning routine looking like then? What about your work patterns? Write everything. Your habits, your behaviour, environment, conditions, all in the left column about when you're at your worst. And that might be right now. And then you want to look at the right column, the 8 out of 10. When things are at their best, when you are cooking, you got a spring in your step, baby. Write everything down there. Who you surround yourself with, what time you get up in the morning, what is your screen time like, what kind of foods are you eating, what kind of podcast videos are you exposing yourself to. Write it all down. So then you have a clear playbook of when you're at your worst, what happens, and when you're at your best, what happens. These are all the inputs for success, and all you need to do the next time that life throws you curveballs and life shifts, you don't need to think, how do I get back at my best? You just look at the playbook. You look at that right column and you go through one by one, and I guarantee you there'll be something that you're not doing. You implement the right column for 7 days and you're back in the game. I guarantee you. As I said before, life is an equation. If you don't like the output, change the input. And this is just getting very clear on your high performance inputs so that we have a clear blueprint on how to be at our best. So I'm going to love you and leave you. I got to get back to some prep here. That was 40 minutes. I don't know how I talked there for 40 minutes, but I just wanted to dive into my story, and I wanted to just share that, I wanted to show you that it isn't all sunshine and rainbows, and that there's been tough times in my life, and albeit like I had a very, very privileged upbringing, and Jesus Christ, my mum and dad give us, they give us the best life possible, and they instilled us with the healthiest habits and the best life they possibly could have. Like, it's the best house to grow up in. that I still went and fucked it all up. But I want to remind you that you can fuck it up and you can still make great of yourself. I don't think you're too far behind, because in 5 years time's going to pass anyway. You know, like if you're thinking about leaving your job, man, could you see yourself doing that for the next 20 years? If no, okay, cool. Get ahead, get going with that now. Get going with that now. You think I need to enjoy life a wee bit more and chill out? Cool, do it. But I want you to realise that there's a high performer in every single one of you. There's an operator there. And, you know, if the Daniel of 5 years ago could see me on a business class flight, flying out to Denver to deliver seminars to people in the health and wellness space, I would have laughed in your face. And this all just came from starting posting videos and people seeing them. And that was the kid that used to cry in his car, that couldn't speak to his parents, that believed that he was going to be a failure, and that he didn't want to wake up and see another day. So if I can do that, there's nothing that you cannot do. So please don't forget that. I appreciate you listening to this podcast. I understand it was probably heavier than usual, and you know, if you are going through something, then please do reach out to me on Instagram, and you know, please do seek professional help. You know, I throughout that I did get therapy. Throughout that, CBT therapy. You know, do I believe that it was the most helpful thing? I would definitely recommend it. I would definitely try it. And you know, I think when it doesn't work for people, they just haven't got the right therapist. So yeah, was that the biggest piece of the puzzle for me? No, honestly not. But sometimes just airing your thoughts without burden can be very powerful, and it can just relieve the size of the cloud that's weighing over your shoulders. And I think it was just important to mention that as well. That, you know, if you are going through something, you're really struggling, please do seek professional help. But I appreciate you. I'm so excited for you. Your life is going to get so good in the next 5 years, and I just don't think you realise it yet. And yeah, if this podcast has taught you anything, please let me know. If you know, it sparked anything inside of you, or it's given you an idea, or it just made you think differently, or if you think I'm a wanker, still, yeah, I'd love to hear that. Go on then. But yeah, big love. I am gonna get back to it. Landing to Denver tonight. It's like 4:30 Denver time, and then landing 4:30 Denver time. Brian's got the white Cybertruck he's picking us up in, and then we're going to go to Aspen for 3 days or 2 days, and in between that I'm just going to bang out normal client work. And yeah, the way it works is like the way, you know, obviously my job works. It's you know, I can be very flexible with it, you know, with where I live. You know, I'd wake up on a Monday, I touch base with all my clients, I make sure everybody's great, I'll record a podcast. You know, once I've done that, I'll go straight into recording a podcast on a Monday. I'll then upload that, and I will then do my Instagram. I'll go through, you know, some of my Instagram DMs, and I will then go to the gym. I'll come back, touch base more with my clients, I might have a call or two, and then yeah, Mondays are my quiet days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, you know, I'll do check-ins, so it's a more in-depth analysis into where our guys are at. We'll look at their training, we'll look at their food, we'll look at their, you know, their steps, their cardio, their mindset. We'll look at everything, professional life, and I'll give them clear action steps. You know, most people are obviously in a fat loss phase, or they're in a gaining phase, or a performance phase. And I'll give them clear action steps. I'll look at where they're at, I'll assess all their metrics, all their answers, and I'll give them feedback within 24 hours, so they're always moving forward. The worst thing you want to do is be sitting in no man's land, and we always want certainty, we want clarity. So if you're in a position and you're on a fat loss phase or a gaining phase, please never sit in no man's land. Get it sorted ASAP. If you're unsure, ask somebody that knows, or ask ChatGPT and act on it. Please never sit in no man's land and hope to get a result, because when you hope, you leave your confidence up to chance. So yeah, that's the way that, you know, I bang out my check-ins, and then I actually love recording podcasts. Like, I find it really fun. I hope you enjoy listening to them as well. I really hope you enjoy listening to them. But yeah, I'd also love your feedback. Like, do you enjoy more of the podcast where I talk about my life and my story, or like just the shit talking, or, you know, more of like the mindset side of things, or the training, or the more technical things? What do you enjoy more of? I love to know. Just gives me a good insight. Or if there's anything else that you'd like me to talk about, I'd love to hear that. So yeah, that's the way my week works. Then Friday, Saturday, we are back in Denver. We're gonna train Saturday morning. Just take it easy that day, go over presentations, and then Sunday we have the game day, baby, and then I'm going to an NFL game on the Monday. But yeah, honestly, like, there's never been a better time to be alive, even if it doesn't feel like it. And yeah, just, you might have had a bad 15 minutes, not a bad day. Don't indulge in it. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, move on, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Big love.